to the Empowering Women podcast. Together, we will hear from ambitious and inspiring career women as they share their stories of success and overcoming career challenges. And now, your host, Mel the Engineer.
Welcome to the Empowering Women podcast. I'm your host, Mel the Engineer, and I'm so glad you joined us today. This episode is being released in August of 2019. The Empowering Women in Industry Conference is coming up, but there's still time to book your hotel and get registered. The conference will be September 26th in Chicago, and there's an excellent lineup of speakers, which you can check out at empoweringwomeninindustry.com. That's empoweringwomeninindustry.com. This is a special episode because we're going to be hearing from the woman who started Empowering Women in Industry, Charli K. Matthews. Charli is the founder and CEO of Empowering Brands, and under this umbrella, she has Empowering Pumps and, of course, Empowering Women in Industry. Through this media and marketing company, Charli helps clients get the most out of their marketing investments and gets clients in front of larger and more diverse audiences focused on their specific areas of expertise. Empowering Brands drives thought leadership and shines a light on future leaders in the industry at hand. Today's episode is special because we get to hear directly from Charli how the Empowering Women in Industry group started and why she's so passionate about it. I want to give you a heads up. This episode is put together from several discussions I've had with Charli. That means there will be multiple break points, which I'll signal with some interlude music. Anytime there's a break with music, it's an opportunity to hit pause and take a break if you can't get through the entire episode in one go. All right, let's jump in with Charli K. Matthews. Charli, thank you so much for sharing some time with me today and joining me on the Empowering Women podcast.
Thanks, Mel. It's great to be here.
I'd like to start with a quick introduction on who are you, what industry do you work in, and how did you end up in this specific industry?
I'm Charli Matthews. I graduated from college at the University of Alabama with a degree in finance and wanted to start a career in sales. And so I joined a company and started advertising sales for the pump industry, and I fell in love with the industry. So today, fast forward, I am the founder and CEO of Empowering Brands, which is a digital media and marketing services company. Our media brand is called Empowering Pumps and Equipment. Basically, what we like to do is highlight industry experts out there in the field and help the industry connect with each other. Yeah, so just to quickly, let you know what, why I responded that way. So, I created Empowering Women almost impulsively, right? I was in this group and researching a lot of workforce development type of articles and trying to figure out what is the problem with the workforce? How are we going to solve it? And what I found was a lot of talk about women being the solution to this problem with not, having the knowledge, the skills, such as welding or really anything in engineering and manufacturing. But also on the other side of that, was trying to figure out, okay, how can I connect more people, right? So my job at that time was trying to lead an organization to connect more, both in person and also online, to look at being thought leaders in things that matter. And so when I found what I thought, okay, women are the solution, right? If there's 50% of us out there, right, that can sign up for or apply for these jobs, then we've got to make it inviting for these ladies to join in our industry. And when I really kind of think back to when I first started in the industry, and we used to say things like, let's make pump sexy. And what we mean by that is to make the pump industry attractive. And so how do we bring people in? How do we keep people? So this has been ever since, for 15 years, I've been thinking about that term. How do we make pump sexy? How do we attract and keep talent here? How do we recruit more talent, right? Like all of these things were present. And so when I was asked to write for the association on the topic of workforce development, I picked women. I guess this is the best way to say that. I picked to focus on women and how could women help fill that gap, both with the skills gap and also the baby boomers retiring and taking all that knowledge with them, and how are we going to train people. So I saw the solution as women. Okay. So I asked the director if we could create a group. We needed to, have a community of women that grew. We needed to, the beginning was a dinner. And I don't remember if I came up with that or he came up with that, but we had a dinner with all these ladies together. And it was nice. It was beautifully done. We kind of had this cocktail hour and then had the dinner where we asked a couple questions. And one of the questions that stood out to me was, or one of the answers, I guess, was that the lady said that because this was a woman engineer that said, I would not have been able to attend this meeting if it didn't say, women in industry. One of my counterparts would have been the one that they sent. But because there was a line item that said women, woman in the pump industry, then I was able to go to that event. And so I think that there should be a place for women who are trying to grow their career that they're able to go, right? And so I was like, well, this is great. We just created this space and then they'll be able to attend again. And that wasn't the case. There were a couple of things that happened. Like they had said that a survey should go out and say, are the members really interested in this? And, no survey went out. And so the women that were leading this group, because I wasn't a real member of the group, or however you want to say that, I'm just a media person. Okay. They were looking to me to lead this group. And so when nothing was happening or they didn't have the meeting listed on the agenda or haven't seen a survey, they're like, so are we going to do that, Charli? Are we going to have a meeting, Charli? And I was like, what just happened? There are all these women now looking at me as leading this group that I just suggested we put together and thought, okay, I'll be pushy. I was pushy to get us in this group as a media partner. So I'll, push to get this meeting for you. So initiate, or what's the best way to say that? I was their cheerleader. I really pulled it together and said, this is awesome and we need to do more of this. But when they looked at me as a leader, where there were a collection of my customers, right, were looking to me to lead them, and I'm like, I have no skills in this area. I don't know. They're not even letting me in the CEO meetings. I don't know how to lead other women because I am stuck right where I am. And that was just, it was just so hard to know, what to do next. And so I looked on my LinkedIn and had 2 women listed there in management, and they were my clients, the ones that were looking to me to lead. And so I said, okay, I'm going to find some ladies out there. I remembered when I was introduced to a couple of ladies in the space, and I thought there were 2, and there were actually 20. And so I said, okay, let's see how many, right? Let's create this LinkedIn group and see how many women are out there that are interested in this. And I thought it'd go from 0 to 20, right? But it went from 0 to 500. And that showed me that there were interest and a need out there. And so what next? Because I can't stop with just a group, right? Then I have to say, okay, we can't just have a group for this. Then it has to have a mission, and it has to have an event, and it has to have long-term plan. And so all these pieces kind of fell together after that. And so when our team is asking, what's your vision for this? Like, I don't know. I just know that women need to develop their leadership skills, their communication skills, their network of people that can support them. And once you have that, then you can grow. And I saw that just creating that dinner, that very first dinner that we had together, where people, women came together, and it was only women in the room after the director kind of said hey and left. It was relaxing. People's guards were dropped down. And so when I had to decide, as this new leader of women, do we invite men to our conference? It was a very difficult decision because I want to be inclusive and diverse, and I want to help improve the workforce as a whole. So how am I going to do this without creating an environment where men can also share their ideas? And so I'm always questioning whether that was the right decision, and always having to defend my answer to not allow them there. And so this week, when I was at the conference, the very first thing, I pull up the Empowering Women in Industry banner, and the show starts, and a man comes up to me, empowering women, what about empowering men? And I was just, I'm so thankful for my reaction. My reaction was, I empower men every day. And I opened up my magazine and I showed him that. And I've been doing that for the last 15 years, promoting both men and women that I came in contact with for the industry. It wasn't until I found out, and with my own experience, that once you've had, let's say, so for me, I've had 15 years experience, you hit a wall where you cannot lead any further, that you start feeling the pushback. You start hearing the things like, it's not good enough for Charli, or it's just business, or we're not ready for that. Those type of things that you start questioning. Is this me? Is this, am I in the wrong space? Am I got the wrong mission? Am I not qualified for that? And those thoughts that you're having, I just feel like aren't necessarily valid, but you want to ask somebody. You need to ask somebody. And I find that it's easier to ask a woman in that situation to say, have you ever had this happen? And they could either agree with you or basically say, well, something realistic, and you would believe them, right? You would believe, well, maybe you just need to work that situation this way, or maybe you need to, obtain these skills and you'll be able to do that. Everything from leadership to negotiation.
My next question for you today is, you've talked about how you were just at a conference and you had to defend your decision to have this woman-focused group and make a conference for empowering women, building their skills and leadership. I'd just like to open it up to you for any other comments on maybe why you think there's been some pushback around this concept or your response to this mentality.
Well, Mel, I think it is not a new concept. I think we've been empowering women for a long time. But when we see change in any organization, it's hard for people to want to just join in. They may have fear in seeing what the motive is for the conference or what the motive is for connecting women and how that plays in with their companies. And really, I think that we just have to define what the reason is for the conference. And basically, that is to educate women to be better leaders and better versions of themselves. Therefore, the work that they're doing for their company, no matter what their skill set is that they're trying to improve, it's going to improve the workforce as a whole. I mean, I'll give you a nugget that I learned with negotiation skills. When I was trying to grow in my first career and I went in for my evaluation, and you told me you had a podcast on this, somebody mentioned this recently about your evaluations. But you go in for your evaluation and you get all A pluses. You're doing a great job. Nothing you could change. And then the next, week you're fired. So how do you go in there and say, these are the things that I've done, and I'd like to grow in this area? Well, you have to first start by writing it down so that you believe all the things and all the things that you've been doing. And just someone saying that out loud and reminding you that that's something you can do, just sit down and be prepared and write it down, is sometimes the best reminder. And so I want women to be able to hear those stories, I want people to help each other with the things that we think are easy, right? To have the confidence to say, I'm empowering women and this is why. And, I'm still learning that, Mel. I don't know how I can pretend that I have the answers because I'm still learning how to be a leader.
Well, it certainly was a wonderful endorsement that, the leaders that you were seeing and your clients basically asked you to lead this women's group that they clearly felt a need for. So that's fantastic.
But Mel, when you get to, we talk about this a lot about your energy, right? The emotional energy that it takes to lead or a movement or a mission. And so we have to be prepared as leaders with that purpose of what we're doing every single time that we go out into the market, right? And it gets exhausting. And so that part of this week is like, you sit down and you have to know the answer. And what is the answer? What is the answer? Why are we empowering women every day? I don't know the answer. What I know when I say empowering women in industry, right? Why I created this is because I want women to have access to the table to sit and share their ideas. I want them to have access to the leadership that they can then present their ideas. And I want them to have access to skills so that they can learn how to better present their ideas. So I want to teach them everything from communication skills to confidence so they can go into the room and know that their idea is valid. And it doesn't matter who they're talking to, that they will have the confidence to tell them their direct opinion and know that that's right. It's right because that's what they believe, or that they're their project is the right project because they've done the research and know that it's going to solve whatever issue they're having. So there's a lot of different ways that I can go and talk and be helpful to kind of this mission to lead. But I also don't feel like I'm the expert. That's why I want to connect all these other ladies together so that they can learn from each other. Because I don't have the answer to all the problems, and I don't think any one person does. But collectively, we can absolutely solve problems. We can get better and support each other, encourage each other.
You're listening to the Empowering Women podcast with Mel the Engineer. Today, we're hearing from Charli K. Matthews, the founder of Empowering Women in Industry. You can listen to the Empowering Women podcast for free on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or on our website at empoweringwomenpodcast.com.
Another thing that happened to me this week is I'm walking around the show. It's easy to target women, right? You see a lady, and I can go up to her, hi, I want to invite you to the conference. But when it gets me is when I am shocked by their position, or I didn't think about them as running a company, right? And so this week I ran into this lady who then, she was so passionate about what she was doing that she wanted to share it immediately. And so she was the owner of a valve manufacturing company. And when she said that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. And I just, in that moment, I said, that should not be shocking to me, right? It shouldn't have surprised me so much to run into a lady and her own the business. So even in my own bias, right, I can definitely see that and know that it exists being threatened when we have two competitive, two women in the same space and it's competitive. So I can absolutely see that and feel that. I just want people to really admit that these things are happening and see it. And so then we can make them better. And the more that we talk about them, the more that we can see them. So anyway, it was an interesting week where I felt like I went in so excited to share empowering women with the industry, and then to feel at the same time that we have to defend the fact that we even have a women's conference to build leadership skills is just so disappointing. And especially when some of the questions come from your closest peers and friends and colleagues that will question why you would ever need to promote a woman, to give them the spotlight or to teach them the skills as a priority. That was really disappointing. And I had to kind of push that emotional energy of that and do my job as selling the media brand as well. So it's interesting to be able to have that emotional strength. You talk about mental toughness. That's one of the things I really am excited about learning. And I think I do that every day, have that mental toughness, but I'd love to learn a couple more skills on how to be better.
Sure. So, I've got several thoughts there that let's just take a moment to acknowledge that, yes, it takes mental energy to have to field those types of questions. And I feel you there. The other thing that I think is fascinating that I just want to comment on is that I've encountered women too who have that sort of mindset as well. And I believe that these are the same type of women that have a mindset of, I don't want to be recognized for doing something because I'm a woman. I just want to do my work and let the work speak for itself. And so I think it does take some extra communication and explanation for the men and women in this case to talk about how that's not what it's about. It's not about, us promoting a woman or shining a light on a woman because she is a woman, but rather there's a number of other reasons, like, in these heavily male-dominated spaces, women typically don't get heard. They're typically not brought along the steps of leadership the same way that their male counterparts are, and in fact, oftentimes are set up to fail on these paths, whether it's intentional or not. And I would say oftentimes It's not intentional.
Right. I agree with you. I think that we have to point out that the most important thing that we're doing by highlighting women is creating role models. And that is to attract people to the industry and then keep them there. And once we have a role model and someone to go to and kind of see ourselves in and model ourselves after, then that gives us a strength. And the other part is setting up someone to fail. That, I think, is not intentional, but we need to recognize what skill does that person need and then give them that skill or the opportunity to obtain that skill. One of the biggest frustrations, right, is when you're trying to grow and you cannot figure out how to get to that next step. And we want to go there, right? We want to improve daily. We've talked about that before. How do I constantly improve when not given that next step or opportunity to that next step? That is so important for me. And then the other thing is when you see, someone who needs your tip or needs your skill on offering, then you have to have the trust and confidence to go to that person and say, here it is. And only the closest people, to them, which is normally that mentor, is going to be able to say that in a way that they will absorb it and take it as I'm trying to help you versus I'm trying to say that you're not doing a good job. Definitely want to make sure that it's inspiring criticism. That's the wrong word, but you know what I mean. Trying to encourage them versus them feeling like they didn't have a good job. Well, for me, I said, well, I'm a woman, so I'm going to empower women. You're a man, you should be empowering men. And I think that is truth, right? We understand women. We can talk about a lot of different things that we experience on a daily basis that men just don't experience. And that is kind of that peer-to-peer communication that you need to have to really grow and bond with somebody. Is like, I get you, I understand you. And I see men doing that all the time. One of my favorite people on Instagram, he is basically talking to guys every day, right? He wants to empower these guys and create this passion and leadership for the men, or that he knows face these trials every day, to provide and to be tough and to be, all the things that we say are traditionally men qualities. What does that look like for a woman? And what is she faced up against? And what is if she's not, soft-spoken enough, or she's too direct, or, what is it that a woman has to deal with? And we know those things. We all have a different view or a different experience that we can talk to. No one's ever called me too quiet. And so I have a different view of that too. So I just think that women can help women and men can help men. But at the end of the day, we're trying to help each other. And what I see is there's not enough women that I can go to and ask that question. And there's not enough women in our industry to fill the gaps that are needed to have this creative, holistic approach to the problems that we have to solve today. They have to be solved by women to come in and fill that workforce. And so I'm going to encourage those women who do have the passion to be in this industry. I'm going to encourage them to learn the skills. If you want to be here, it should be a great environment for you to come into. There are lots of opportunities everywhere, from the admin to the man out into the field. we can do that. We can do that work. And so if that's your passion, then go for it. And I just want to encourage them and be there for them and give them access to those skills, to give them access to the table. I felt like Meghan Markle, she has a great statement that I saw before she became glamorous. I love it. It says that if you don't have access at the table, that you need to create your own. And it's not about me having access to a table. I own my own company, but I want to make sure that women who want to be in this field, any field, whatever their passion is, that they have the opportunity to sit at the table of their choosing and to share their ideas with the skills to do so. I don't see myself as a leader yet. I'm going to work on that because I have to. You kind of get put in that role, and I'm sure you've talking for you now, Mel, but that confidence that you have to overcome those limiting beliefs is necessary to grow in your career. And so if we can make that more real for everyone, that these things come up. We have doubts, we have fears, that if we can share that happens on a regular basis to leaders, then that makes it a lot more comfortable to become one. And I look forward to growing as a leader so I can help be that voice for our industry. I want to empower women to raise their voice. I think that everybody has a voice and an opinion, but I think that owning our voice is so much more important than being liked. That was another thing that I learned this week, Mel. It is more important to me to be respected for the knowledge that I have and the experiences that I've had than to be liked. And being liked is very important to me. Like, it's one of the top things. I want to be liked, and everybody that knows me well would probably say that, or say something to the fact it's all about Charli. But it's more about I want to be liked in the way that I don't want to have any bad relationships. It's very important for me to have good relationships and grow and connect with people. And so if I'm not liked, then that's uncomfortable for me. But I think that I've learned and I've grown to a point to where what I say now is about other people and how we can grow and empower other women in industry. And so it doesn't matter if people don't like what I'm doing. It's necessary that we do this so that we can grow as an industry.
Was there something that happened recently that really brought that concept up for you?
I think it's just growth. I don't have one specific example other than, trying to lead in an organization and finding out that they don't really want you to be there, or feeling like they don't want you to be there. Who cares? You're there. Go ahead and lead and do what you're supposed to. I mean, if we go kind of holistic approach here for this conversation, I think that I was more interested in getting approval. I think, Mel, I do. I think this is the thing. When I am developing content for empowering women in industry, I am analyzing, what does this mean to me? And so when I wrote about the men's role in empowering women, I felt like I was still asking permission to have a meeting. I felt like I created that messaging to ask permission in a analyzing kind of way, right? I'm looking back at it and I'm saying, are you still, needing approval from your network to do this? Are you still asking for permission to call a meeting? That is early on my career. The way that I felt that I wasn't developing is that had to ask to call a meeting when I had the label or job title as director. And so why am I limiting my ability to call a meeting?
Mm-hmm.
And that's internal. And I learn about that every time I write. I learn that this is something that I'm doing to myself, right? That I'm putting in these limiting beliefs. So therefore, stop. It's okay to have a meeting. We're actually doing something good for others, for the industry as a whole, for the woman who needs some support or a skill. We're actually helping them grow. So this is a good thing. And stop feeling like you need your, entire network to be on board with you when you can just own your vision for this. And so that's what I think that stems from.
Let's go back for a minute. So you gave us this really wonderful setup on, how empowering women in industry came about and what it means to you. So let's back up for a little bit. It's surprising for me to hear that you don't see yourself as a leader because, I know that you own and lead this company. So walk us through a little bit of your earlier career and what led you to start your first company.
So I think that I always wanted to own my own company, but I didn't remember. So when I went to college, I, went through the admissions process and filled out, what I thought I should do. And that was not based on kind of what I enjoyed, which I really wanted to own my own child development center and teach children how to develop those skills, not just sit in front of the TV, but learn and have fun while learning. And so that was what I was passionate about. But my mom did tell me I wasn't going to make any money in that. So I was like, okay, well, I need to survive. So let me figure out a way to make money. And so I picked finance. I thought that sounds like money. And so when I took all of those hard classes, which have letters and numbers in them, so I think, I could do anything if I have to take those classes that combine letters and numbers. When I got through that to the end, I had a business class where we had to write our own business story, right? What would be our business when we, if we could create one? And mine was growing up with KK. It was a child development center, and so I do think I wanted to own my own business. But once you go to college and you get into the workforce, you forget that dream and you're just in the everyday, what am I supposed to do for this job? And so I was in that. When I graduated, I looked for something in banking and finance, but then continued my career, I guess the best way to say that, in sales for a publishing company. And I learned how to sell advertising, sell event space. I really invested a lot of time in learning the industry and also just being involved as much as I could with not only the sales job, which is what I did, sell advertising, but also learn everything there was to know about media and what goes into developing a magazine or how do you find an audience. And so I worked with everyone on the team and really absorbed what their job and what their roles were. And that led me to want to continue to grow there. I was there at that company, a media company, for 8 years. And I loved it. I fell in love with the industry right off the bat. When I say the industry, I'm talking of the pump industry. It was a great industry to have my first career in. I immediately found out how important equipment is to our daily lives. And so I say I fell in love. I fell in love with the people, and I continued to grow there. But once I got to the point where I wanted to grow and lead and do something other than just sell, which those words still ring in my head, just sell, I faced trials because I didn't know how to be in my supportive role, which is how I started with the company as admin and then sales. And so I'm always in this support role to now I want to call a meeting, and now I want to grow a product and a service. And no matter what, my name doesn't, find its way to the agenda. So I'm constantly asking questions in the meeting, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, please don't ask another question so we can get out of here. But that was my turn to talk. And so I can still remember the day that my name got put on the agenda. I thought, oh, finally, I've made it. So that was probably not when I made it. It was probably like, here, finally, get her out of here. But I think the biggest thing for looking back at my career is that I didn't know how to ask to grow, right? I didn't know, I'd never been taught how to have a career development path. There was no set, okay, you're going to, have this title for a while, you're going to learn these skills, then what? I was just drifting, happy with my job, and then given more responsibility. And so kind of, I guess it's my nature to take on, to activate something, right? To start, I want to create something. In this case, it was a magazine, and then move on to doing that work. So getting it started, doing the work, but then never kind of thinking, what's my personal development here? How do I need to climb the ladder? It was just not something that I thought about. So I think, and I forgot where our question was going, Mel. I'm just rambling at this point.
Well, really just, kind of career path and what led to your first business. But, I want to interject and say that the pump and wastewater space is lucky that you ended up starting there, because I think you're the type of person who just loves people, and you probably would have fallen in love with whatever group you started with. So it's lucky for the pump and water and wastewater industry that you landed with us.
Well, I will agree with that. It was absolutely about the people. And so when I created Empowering Pumps, I did that so I could stay connected with the people that I had met, and also the association that I was working with. I had promised them in a meeting that I knew how to help them be seen, have a better website, have more social media, have a presence out there. And so I created my company in order to stay involved with that group of people and help them. And I'm happy that I was able to do that. And so you get to a point where you check the list that you've accomplished what you set out to do. And for that, my original goal was to have a job, right? That second goal is to help my team, to employ a team of people, and to make sure that they're happy with their work and that they're passionate about coming to work on something every day. That, every time I get my team together, I make sure that they're working on something that they are happy and passionate about working on. Otherwise, we don't have a company. And so I really put a lot of emphasis on that, and in making sure that I even build brands that my team can get behind and be passionate about working on that mission or goal. And so with Empowering Women, it turns out that I had a lot of women on my team. I don't know how to say that other than the priority was not necessarily to hire women, but they had become my peers in my team. And so if I look at what happened to me in the last couple years, first is, if you've ever met Sienna, she is definitely an empowered, confident woman, and she is leading me a lot of the time. And I appreciate that. We always know that we need to hire someone better than ourselves, and I do that on my team, every aspect of it. So I'll kind of look back and say I couldn't do anything in my company without having the support of my employees. And I hesitate to say employees because they're all entrepreneurs and have great, vision by themselves. So we all work together as a team.
So Charli, you've mentioned that you believe we are stronger when we work together, that women who come together in groups can be more powerful, more effective. What's an example that you've seen of women supporting women, or perhaps even a woman mentoring another woman, and a positive, powerful impact that's created?
Thanks, Mel. I want to point out a experience that happened to me that helped me on my way to growing the Empowering Women's Network. It was basically a conversation with a young girl who was looking to grow in her own career, where we were just talking, and I somehow let her know that I wanted to connect with more women in the industry. And at the next conference, she had a mission to introduce me to as many women in the room as possible. And just that initiative really did set the course for what happened next. One of the ladies in the room, her name is Jen Muir, and I watched her in a meeting raise her hand and then put it down. And I'm comfortable sharing this story because I've talked to Jen about it several times. And I said, I came up to her as the girl was, introducing us. And I said, I saw you. What were you going to say in that meeting? And she goes, I know. Us girls, we put down our hands too early. And then she goes into the book, Lean In, and mentions all these different things that really made me think, okay, I can relate with this woman, and she is trying to, show the industry that women need to improve these skills. And I thought, what a great way to be able to connect with her on that level. How can I help her back? Right. And so we began our relationship in both business, we're both in the pump industry, and she became a partner through strategic planning. And all of that aligned together to create a way that we can work together on a movement as well. And so I've heard a lot of people recently talk about, how can we align kind of our volunteer or charity or organizations outside of work together in order to make a bigger impact, or even just to have time to do these things. A lot of the time, we have something very dear to our heart, but we don't have the extra time to do them. And so those little connections of just listening to whatever that coworker or customer is saying, and thinking, how can I connect them to someone that will help them in the future with their business or life? That is very powerful, and that's what I've seen over and over again through these social media channels, through conferences. One of the conferences that I went to was Women in Manufacturing, and that was my first exposure to just a massive group of women who were all leaders, and also trying to figure out, okay, as leaders, how do we take that back to our organizations and have these groups that then help each other have a better workforce? And so I just think that it's based on listening, creating this connection that is better for business and in our lives.
Is there an experience that you have had individually that you would want to share where your life or career has been particularly impacted by another woman?
So once I started working on empowering women as kind of this movement or mission, I began talking with other women about it. And one lady in particular, I didn't even realize that she was listening and thinking about how she could help me. And the next time I was with her, she basically took me around to a room full of men, which is what I thought, and made a point to introduce me to the women that she knew in the room. with that introduction, I met an engineer. She was an entrepreneur as well because she owned her own engineering firm. And just the introduction to her started this movement in me to become a better woman leader. And the reason why is because I watched her and how she went around the room and interacted. I watched her in meetings, and I really admired her and also saw her struggles as well. And so being able to have a conversation with her after that, and then opening up our businesses and to figure out how we could help each other was a monumental time for me personally. Also, she was more than just a partner or a sponsor. She was actually a friend. So she gave me resources to help in the overall balance of life, right? Work-life balance we talk about, but that it's basically your family, your business, and how we're going to work together to grow these and grow yourself. I'm always thinking about how to improve. And she gave me resources. She gave me the resource, Brene Brown. She took me to the Know Your Value conference and really opened my eyes to this women's network. And all those things that she did, really kind of not even probably thinking about it as I'm going to mentor this girl, or really just to be helpful and to have support on her side. It really was impactful to me to know that there are resources to help you lead. There are resources to help you be the real version of yourself in business, and how important it is to grow in those areas of confidence and leadership. But then also you have to also grow in those areas of being a better business owner, better strategist, a better person in the pump industry, right? With all of the knowledge that's out there, we have to educate ourselves. And so she taught me that. And, I guess that's the best example I can have of a person recently who has made one little step towards me, and I can see that ripple effect.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a really nice example, and it's a nice way to describe how someone led by example and helped you along the way, directly and indirectly. I really appreciate that.
One of the things that happened to me directly for empowering women is I got an email from a stranger who was a woman who said, "How can I grow in this industry as a woman, as a woman in this industry? I never heard that before. How can I grow as a woman in this industry? Having a hard time. What can I do?" And I was shocked, first of all, that she would reach out to me to ask that question. And I suddenly knew who she was because of the company she worked for was engaged and would click on and respond to different things that we put out on social media. And because I love checking out who is engaging with our posts, I do it so much to understand our network. I'm like, I recognize her, and let me just say, what I think you could do is come and work for me. And so that led to watching someone develop as an employee, and that more than anything drives me to be able to, and I don't know that I want to share this, Mel, but it's a question that I'll ask, but to watch somebody join your team and develop and that change their life, that is the most important thing that I could do, is to contribute to another person's life for good.
That's really special.
So empowering women what does that mean, right? So for me, the word empowering runs through all of my brands, and it means to give power or the authority to do something. And to give power, just to think about that. So I'm going to empower, to give power to a woman in order for her to be able to do something. And to have a real example of that, because I hire women and give them this platform to do whatever work they want, right? I don't hire only women. That I've tried to hire a couple men that has fell through recently, actually. But to be able to live by that and say, we are empowering women every day through empowering women in industry, this platform or media brand community, I actually have to be doing that every day. I have to constantly empower someone to do what you say you're going to do, right? I can't depend on everybody else in the community to do it. I set out every day to say, how can I help that woman succeed? How can I give that woman a voice? How can I give her the skills that are going to make her more successful in her career? If I can do that, one day at a time, then I feel like other people, I feel like I can have confidence in saying that we are doing that. So I start with me. If I can do it, then anybody can do it. I don't know that there's so many different things to talk about, Mel. I want to be clear with one thing, that I am creating a community for women so that we have a network to go to learn from, to feel supported, to understand that if we empower each other instead of compete with each other, then we're stronger. We can have better brands. We can have better businesses. And I want to be that example. And so if I have to take on those battles of saying, why empower women? Go for it. I can handle it. I'm going to practice my mental toughness, gain some communication skills, and I'll be the person that leads this effort, knowing that I'm not the expert out there, knowing that I'm going to learn more from these ladies that I get to connect with than I could ever give them, and thankful for that, and hopefully be an example for others to do that.
Charli, I would like to open the floor to you to talk to the women who are listening about the conference. Suppose somebody's on the fence about attending. What would you say to women who are thinking about coming to the conference, but they haven't pulled the trigger on the registration yet?
I'd say, come on, ladies. We're going to have a great time for learning and being together. I think the kind of hesitation for coming to the conference is it's an unknown, brand new platform, getting these ladies together. But I want to just let everyone know that this is an industry conference with some of the top players that can make a difference in our industry. It's amazing to see the caliber of speakers and people that will be attending in the audience. I think, I personally get to see, who signs up and registers for the conference, and it's amazing, that we will be able to interact and learn from all these leading ladies in the industry. So I hope that you'll attend.
Me too. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a blast.
It is going to be a blast.
Thank you again for joining us today and our discussion with Charli, the founder of Empowering Women in Industry. If you'd like to learn more about the organization Empowering Women in Industry or our conference, you can visit empoweringwomeninindustry.com. That's empoweringwomeninindustry.com. And if you'd like to find show notes or other information related to the podcast, the website is just empoweringwomenpodcast.com. If you'd like to get in touch with Charli or any other part of the Empowering Women organization, We are all over social media. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook as Empowering Women in Industry. There's also a LinkedIn group you can join by the same name. And finally, if you're on Twitter, you can find us at Women in IND. So the handle is spelled WOMENININD. And Charli is on Twitter as at Charli K. Matthews, and that's spelled CharliKMathews, Charli K. Matthews. And of course, you can always reach out to me directly on Twitter at Mel the Engineer. I'm also on Facebook as at Mel the Engineer, or you can email me directly at meltheengineer@gmail.com. Until next time, this is Mel signing off.
Thank you for joining us for an episode of the Empowering Women Podcast with Mel the Engineer. If you find the Empowering Women Podcast helpful, please consider leaving a review on iTunes or wherever you download your podcasts. Our show is a partnership between Mel the Engineer and the Empowering Women in Industry organization. Learn more by visiting empoweringwomenpodcast.com.